The first one is that when you are indecisive, which means you just don't make a decision, you feel safe, but it keeps you stuck. Think about this in an equation form. This side, waiting equals avoidance. What's up, champions? Welcome to another Champion Circle training. Every single month, we jump into these trainings to where we go into the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And here at Champion Circle, which Champion Circle is a professional organization that helps business owners accelerate their results. And with each of these trainings, we want to focus down on the bread and butter, which what we talk about, which is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, all 13 principles. This month, we are focused on the principle of decision. And we have decided to give you this training today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our amazing speakers. First, we're going to hear from Mr. Ian Stermer, who's going to talk to us about the line between thought and action. Then you're going to hear from myself, Coach Willie Blake, who's going to talk to you about indecision being the dream killer. And then finally, we're going to hear from the founder of Champion Circle, Mr. Jon Kovach Jr., who's going to give us his wisdom on being definite in everything that you do. So without further ado, without having to hear from me anymore, let's jump right over to our first and wonderful speaker, Mr. Ian Stermer, who's going to talk to us about the line between thought and action. Ian, take it away.
Thank you, Coach Willie. A while ago, I was talking with a friend, and she was recommending a course of action that I take. And I made the comment, yeah, I need to do that. And she responded that, the words I need to actually mean, hey, that's a good idea, but I'm not actually going to do anything about it. And I got to think about that and realize how true that is. How many times do I say, I need to read that book? I need to write that list. I need to start that project. And it comes down to, yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great thought, but nothing's ever going to come from it. So how do we move from that great idea we're not going to use into something we actually do? Now, every project, every goal we have, every major achievement that we want starts out, as we know from Napoleon Hill, with that desire, that faith, that belief that we can do things, knowing what it is we really want in our life. But it has to move at some point from something up in our head that we're just kind of moving around with or growing into something that becomes true action. And I think there's a definite line when it goes from an idea to going into action, and that's decision. When we truly make a decision that we are going to do something. And I think most of us in our lives have those moments where that sudden flash of inspiration, that sudden realization that something can actually happen and be true. Now, sometimes those things are just kind of almost random. My favorite author is a man named Haruki Murakami, is a Japanese novelist, and he talks about his decision moment. He had a day off and he went to watch a baseball game. And as one of the players hit the ball and he heard the crack of the ball as the bat hit it with the sun shining and the green grass. And as soon as that sound of the ball hitting the bat or the bat hitting the ball reached his ear, a thought popped into his head, I can write a novel. And that was a deciding moment for him. He made that decision at that moment out of the blue that he was going to become a novelist and write a novel. And he went home and did that and turned out to be enormously successful. Once in a while, a decision might come upon us like that. But I think that's a very rare occasion where it just something we'd never thought of suddenly hits us and we decide to do that. But I think a more likely thing is quite often decisions are thrust upon us. And we suddenly have to decide, do I take action right now? An irrevocable decision to take an action that moves it from all of the thought and planning into actually doing. And I think the great example for that is actually a man named Ben Sliney. Ben Sliney was the director of the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. his first day on the job just happened to be September the 11th in 2001. On his very first day in the job, as the planes hit the Twin Towers, he had to make a decision. It was forced upon him. He must make a decision right then, his first day on the job, what to do with air traffic for the remainder of at least that day and who knows how long going forward. I think that must have been an incredibly difficult decision for him, having well, he was experienced in the field, but first day in that job, first day having to take control of the FAA and make the most monumental decision in probably most of our lifetimes. Let me speak that again. I apologize. In our lifetime, was that decision to ground all of the planes on September 11th. That was a decision that he probably never planned to make before, but I'm sure he had researched. I'm sure he knew about that. He had studied about it, read about it, knew what his options would be. And then when that moment came, that those planes struck and he had to take control of that, it was no longer an idea in his head. It was no longer something to study and think about. It was something that he had to make a decision to take an action right at that moment. And he was able to do that. And we don't know all the details of what happened, but probably many, many lives were saved because of that decision. So sometimes, again, decisions may just be out of the blue. Many times they're just thrust upon us, and we must make a decision at that point. I'm going to say the third type of decision is when it builds up to a point where we realize the decision has to be made. And I think the great example of this is one of the heroes of modern times for us, Miss Rosa Parks, who struggled through many challenges and the unfairness of the laws and what was going on in society in the 1950s, and reached a point where she knew that she could not continue the way she was going. And she had to make a decision to do something differently. And one day, as she was sitting on the bus, for those of you who aren't aware of her story, she was an African-American woman who at the time would be required by law to give up her seat if a white person came on the bus. That's what happened. She had had a long day at work. She was tired. A white person came on the bus and expected her to get up and stand so that he could sit down. She refused to get up. This sparked a huge controversy. It sparked a boycott of the Montgomery bus system that lasted over a year and really was a pivotal starting moment in the civil rights movement in the United States. She came to that decision, and I'm honestly not sure if that was something she planned for a while. I think what I've read of hers is she just realized that it had gone too far, and action now had to be taken. That decision, again, to go from thoughts and ideas and plans to make a concrete decision to move to the action phase. And as a result of her making that decision, the United States has become such a better place, a more equal place. And you know, the civil rights, the human rights of so many people have become just incredibly better because of her decision to, I was about to say to stand up and take an action, but her decision to sit down and take an action. And you know, I think that's one of the greatest metaphorical standing up by her sitting that we have in our lives today. So a thanks to her for her being really a hero because of that decision, that making a concrete decision. And I'm going to finish with the fourth way of making a decision is something that is planned out, built up, figured out ahead of time. Excuse me. A decision that has gone through all of the planning stages, and the timing of that decision is determined ahead of time. But it still is a point where a single decision sparks that difference, that definite line, that demarcation between thought and idea and action moving forward. And that would be President Abraham Lincoln giving the Gettysburg Address. When he gave the Gettysburg Address, that marked a definitive change in how and why the Civil War was fought in the United States. He brought out at that time that we are fighting the Civil War not just to preserve the Union, which had been the idea before then, but as a matter of civil rights and human rights. Um, and he made the comment that the soldier's sacrifice is to bring about a new birth of freedom. And that was him bringing out the importance of ending slavery in the United States. And that became the purpose of the Civil War. Because Abraham Lincoln planned out, knew what he wanted, he met with his counselors, he discussed these things, and he knew that the outcome of this war would have something far greater than just preserving the United States as one nation instead of being split into two. It meant the freedom of millions upon millions of people going forward in this country. It meant something far greater than it had meant before then, something that would resonate around the world, literally, as an end of the country with I think, the highest amount of slavery at that time. So Abraham Lincoln's decision to use that point, that really terrible battle, that huge sacrifice that so many of those soldiers had gone through, so many people who were died, injured, and wounded at that time. And he made the decision that that was the point he would bring about to explain to people why we were going through these sacrifices and that their sacrifices had a great meaning. And that was a point that a lot of people entered into the Civil War or joined up on the Union side to fight against slavery to bring about the freedom of people. Those decision points that people make, those are the exact moments that something goes from the idea, from we should do this, I think I should do that, I know I need to do that, into I am doing that. This is now happening. It is really, it's an irrevocable, sorry, I say decision is the definitive moment where an irrevocable action begins. It is that moment in time that everything changes, whether it's a goal that we begin to in our life, whether it's losing weight or eating healthier, whether it's spending more time with family, whether it's writing a book or starting a business or expanding upon something, running for a political office, ending an injustice in the world, or working to, truly make a difference. Any of those things we do require that definitive moment where a decision is made and it is no longer possible to go back to yeah, I need to do that. And instead, it becomes a point that this is happening. I will do this. I am doing this. To I have done this, and we see the result of it. So I want to close with that. Everything in Napoleon Hill has talked about up until this point takes place in our mind. It's our think and grow rich. It's the think part of it. It's the building up to it. It's the planning. It's the desires. It's the gaining knowledge. It's the preparation. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where it actually begins. When we make that decision, that is a line between a thought and the action that we must take. So I'll leave you with that, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that training. And it's true. Everything Napoleon Hill talked about, from when you start off with desire and faith, as you go forward, it's all been about the mind. It's all been about what's happening inside. And now we jump to decision, where the rubber meets the road, where you go forward. And this is the time to where now you take all that knowledge and put it into the application. So thank you for your wisdom and thank you for your training. I now have the awesome privilege to be able to share with you my thoughts on this wonderful principle of decision as I go into not just talking about decision, but how indecision is a dream killer. How many of you, like me, have ever been waiting for the perfect moment to start something and it never comes? If you're like me, that happens quite often, especially when I'm trying to find that perfect time to be able to work, to spend that hour and a half in editing a video or recording a speech or whatever it may be. I look for that perfect time and it never seems to come. And it seems that decision to be able to follow my dream never occurs because of the indecision in taking the decision in imperfect timing. Back 3 months ago, I came across this challenge that is probably worldwide by now, but it's called 75 Hard. 75 Hard is, in some people's words, an excruciating diet fitness plan to where you have to work out twice a day. One has to be outside, where you have to follow a diet, no cheat meals, no alcohol. You got to drink a gallon of water. You also got to read 10 pages in a book and take a progress picture, which is hard for some of us who might not like looking at our own bodies in the mirror. You have to do all of those every single day perfectly for 75 days. I've heard about this for probably a year and a half now from different friends. And I've seen some friends do it and they've, after many attempts, become successful at it. I've also seen friends who start it and then it kind of just melts away into them just not completing it. And so I thought to myself, what if I were to do it? What if I were to, as this 295-pound man, almost 300, sitting at my max weight, what if I were to do it? Because I had a vision for the future. I knew that when my girls grew up, that I didn't want to be that dad at their wedding to where when you do the slow dance, it's hard for me to stand up. It's hard for me to walk over there, difficult to dance. And then looking back at the videos and the pictures, thinking, I wish I looked better for my kids. I didn't want that. I want to be that dad where those viral videos go out of where you're slow dancing with your daughter, and then all of a sudden the music changes. And then the awesome choreography and doing flips and doing a bunch of cool stuff. I want to be that dad. I want to be like that surprising factor with my daughter. But I knew I couldn't have that if I looked the way that I did. So 75 hard was an option. And I felt like I've tried all the other diets, all the other weight loss strategies in the book, and I didn't want to give myself shots or liposuction or anything like that. I simply wanted to do it myself to where I built a habit rather than finding a shortcut. So I had a decision to make. And as I sat there thinking, I thought about what was going to happen the next 75 days. Now, champions, listen to this. Over the next 75 days, 3 months ago, I was moving from Utah to Idaho, all of our stuff, and not just once, but twice, because I got to come back for my daughter's preschool graduation. So we're moving twice. I also volunteer to camp each year for type 1 diabetic teenagers, in which I'll be gone for a week, in which if I were to have to stick with that, how in the world is that going to happen? Like most people, I had family reunions, I had vacations. This is the summertime. And one by one, by one, by one, these excuses continued to come up. So I thought about it and I didn't know what to do. There was so much going on. How could I put time into doing this pretty rigorous diet and fitness goal? And as I thought about it, that vision of the future of what I wanted came back, and not the good one. I thought about what would happen if I didn't make that decision today. What if I didn't choose today to do 75 hard? I would still be overweight, if not more overweight until obesity. Let alone the physique, but the bones and muscles in my body would age a lot quicker. My family would get leftover energy from me, which I never, ever want to give my family leftover energy. The people I come in contact with won't see me as this example and mentor and coach that I want them to see me as. Some people might, but it won't be the exact same way as if I did it. And as I thought more about the negative things that happened, I finally chose to make a decision, which was buying the app for, I think it was like $7, buying the app, opening up to day one, and starting there. At day 11 was our first move. And I can tell you from day 1 to day 11, I felt more energy and endurance, to which it actually helped me out in the move. And from simply making that decision, I went through 2 moves. I went through a week long with teenagers. I went with a bunch of family vacations. I went through different podcast interviews with my podcast and other people's. One by one, by one by one, things happened, and I still made it happen. Day by day, I continued forward doing it flawlessly. And where I'm at right now, I'm sitting at 265 pounds, which is 30 pounds less than I was at that time. My physique is tighter. I look good. I don't know about you guys. I think I look good. I'm looking great. And I'm grateful for that decision I made. Looking back on it, there are 3 things that came up. 3 lessons that I learned from that day one to where I'm at right now that I want to share with you. Because the indecision back then would have killed the dream that I was creating forward. And for each and every one of you, let me share those lessons with you. The first one is that when you are indecisive, which means you just don't make a decision, you feel safe, but it keeps you stuck. Think about this in an equation form. This side, waiting equals avoidance. Waiting equals avoidance. Every single time in which I wait to do something, and it's because I am avoiding something else. I am trying to be safe, be comfortable, not be outside in a growth zone, but I'm sticking in a comfort area. Waiting equals avoidance. So the question to ask yourself is this: what am I avoiding? And whatever you are avoiding, I would highly recommend that you put that as the number 1 priority to doing today, because the difference between decision and indecision is simply one clear choice. The second thing is that there is never a good time. My friends, there is never a good time. There is never a perfect time. There is never a perfect moment in which the universe will align, that it'll start right then. The best time is starting right now. Starting where you're at. You might have to knock your ego down. You might make mistakes going forward, but the best time is to start right now. Because I can tell you what, the bill in which you get from doing the dream that you want is always going to be less than at the end of your life getting what we call the bill of regret, which is going to be multiples of times. Because when you're at that point, you don't have time for your dream anymore. My friends, there's never a great time, never a perfect moment to start something, which means the best time to start is right now. And then the third one is you got to trust yourself. Trust yourself that you are able to adapt, able to move forward, because you survived. One of my favorite things to tell people whenever they feel down about themselves or don't know what to move forward is this. And I tell myself all this. There's dyslexia. I tell this to myself all the time as well, because I have doubts. I tell myself, I have survived 100% of the days that I have lived, because I'm still here today. I have survived 100% of those days, which means that moving forward, I am still going to be able to survive. That all the past thoughts, all the negative stories, all the rabbit holes I dug myself down in the past did not create a day in which I didn't survive. I've survived 100% of them, which should give me the confidence and trust that I'll be able to survive moving forward. Number 1, indecision feels safe but keeps you stuck. Number 2, there is never a perfect time. So just start today. And number 3 is that trust yourself, because you've survived 100% of the days that you have already lived. So I'll end with this. A question for you wonderful champions, which is, what decision am I avoiding? Whatever that decision is, That should be your number one priority to start today. Because when you start that today, you start moving forward on the path and the journey in which you need to toward that dream that you want. But the indecision today, the moment of waiting, of avoiding to do something that's hard, is going to still lead you down the path, but not towards your dream, but towards something else in which you don't desire. Indecision is still a decision, and it is the worst decision. So make the decision today and realize that you don't need more time. You just need one clearer choice. Champions, I want to thank you for letting me share my experience and story with you on decision. And last but not least, I'm going to introduce our final speaker, which is the founder of Champion Circle, Mr. Jon Kovach Jr., who is going to share with us his expertise and wisdom on the topic of decision with what he goes into as be definite in everything that you do. Jon, take us away.
Hey everybody, my name is Jon Kovach Jr. I'm so pumped up from all of the training that we've heard recently. I want you to imagine this. It's 5 a.m. I'm lacing up my spikes, standing on the track, muscles tense, heart pounding, frost still clinging to the hurdles. I was chasing Olympic dreams, but something was off. Something felt different. No matter how much I trained, I couldn't shut my brain off. No matter how much I trained, my brain was just running, okay? I didn't just want to be a world-class athlete, okay? I also wanted to start a business, give speeches, build communities, do philanthropy, give service and charity everywhere throughout the world. There were so many other things than just athlete on my mind. So I had this ridiculous thought, absolutely ridiculous. What if I could just turn myself into a robot? Wouldn't that be crazy? Like you could just turn off your senses. Programmed, efficient, no distractions, just chase the goal hour by hour, minute by minute. And then it hit me. By becoming a robot, that would mean giving up the most powerful gift we have as human beings. And that's the power to choose. Every day we're presented with choices, some small, some monumental. And while the easy road is tempting, you and I both know that the path of greatness requires a definiteness or absolutes. See, Napoleon Hill wrote in his book, Outwitting the Devil, be definite in everything you do. I'm pointing at you as I say this. Be definite in everything you do and never leave unfinished thoughts in the mind. Form the habit of reaching definite decisions on all subjects. We must be definite in everything we do. I grew up hearing my dad crack the silliest dad joke. He used to say, when you get to the fork in the road, and then he'd pause. Then he'd say, take it. Not right, not left. He would say, when you get to the fork in the road, take it. You know, like a eating fork. It's such a dad joke. But what he really meant was don't freeze. Don't stand there waiting for the perfect option. Just choose. Then commit. In his work, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill says, if there had been no decision to hold the Continental Congress, there could have been no Declaration of Independence. I love that quote and I love that line because think about it. Like, no decision, no freedom in America, no future. We literally wouldn't have a Declaration of Independence. The decision to call the Continental Congress. Many times I've thought late at night, like, should I call a midnight meeting to my team? And sometimes they're for dumb reasons, but just imagine if they had not sent word in the middle of the night to each one of the founders, we wouldn't have that. That's how powerful our choices are and that they can be. And that same power lives within you. Like every individual person's choices have universal results on their own world and the world around them. And even through the powers of the ripple effects, all of our world, we're affected by other people's decisions and indecisions. So imagine if your laziness is affecting those you love. Ooh, even your community. Imagine if your indecision was influencing the potential outcomes of everyone around you. To me, that's some pretty heavy stuff. Be definite in everything you do. Just like the famous jazz and funk artist James Brown always saying, "Get up off of that thing." You know that song? That's one of my favorites. Always gets me in high energy and making me move. Literally like shaking my hips. I get up off my thing and I get on my feet and I dance around. So that's important. But now let's fast forward, okay? Today I've taught thousands of professionals around the world my irrefutable laws of high performance. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, you cannot live a high performing life if you're indecisive. Indecision is the enemy of momentum. We learned this. It delays dreams. It kills confidence. So how do you break free? Let me share 3 key steps to mastering personal accountability. Step 1, acknowledge the past. Yes, even the painful parts. There's this moment in The Lion King, you know the movie, where Rafiki smacks Simba over the head. Simba shouts, "Ouch, that hurt." And Rafiki goes, yes, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, you can either run from it, and then he takes another swing at him, and he misses, and he says, or you can learn from it. So if you think about it, what is your Rafiki moment? Are you learning from the past? And are you taking that action? Acknowledge the past. Step number 2, accept the present. This is where most people in this process of accountability get stuck. You would think it would be the past because they can't get over the past. No. It's the present. So this is where most people get stuck. We wish our way into the future. We truly do. But we refuse to accept where we actually are. Look, faith is powerful. And you thought I was going to say but. Faith is powerful, and so is work. Faith without works is dead, to quote the adage and scripture. Dave Ramsey, who's famously known for the get out of debt process and the baby steps that he teaches. He says, pray like it's up to God, but work like it's up to you. Let's say that again. Pray like it's up to God, but work like it's up to you. And let the rest take action. Because man, does it fill in. So again, accept the present. Just accept it. If you can't accept it, you can't move on. But step number 3 is own the future. Not hope, not wish, own it. Live like your dream is already yours. Think like the person who's already crossed the finish line. Anytime I do in my envisionment exercises, I'm already thinking about what it's like after the race or after the accomplishment, what life is like as a successful human being who accomplished the goal before I set off. Start with the end in mind. So, because when you show up with integrity, right? Physically, mentally, spiritually, you activate the laws of nature in your favor. That's what Napoleon Hill teaches. There's this quote that's etched into the Korean War Memorial that's in Washington, D.C. I'll never forget it. It says 3 words: freedom isn't free. Wow. Freedom isn't free. There's always a cost to freedom. Sometimes in history, that cost was the sacrifice of others' lives. Freedom isn't free. And neither is success. It demands decisions. It requires commitment. It asks you to be definite. So let me leave you with this. Whether your freedom is financial, emotional, spiritual, or personal, whether your goal is to write a book, lead a movement, raise a family, or run your own race, pay your bills, make more money, you already have what it takes. You don't need to be a robot like I thought. Everything you need is already inside you. You just need to decide. Use the power of decision to achieve anything. And once you do, don't look back. Thank you.
Thank you, Jon, for giving us your training. And thank you for all of our speakers today for sharing their wisdom and experience with us. Because here at Champion Circle, we know the power from Think and Grow Rich, that each of the principles that Napoleon Hill goes into, from desire to decision to the sixth sense and the brain at the end, whatever it is, if you follow each of the principles and create it into your life, make that decision, it will impact you in the way in which you want to receive your goal, and it'll help you accelerate toward that result. Champions, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for Ian and Jon for sharing your trainings. Thank you for myself. That's kind of weird to say, for sharing it as well. And with that being said, champions, that wraps up this training that we have on the principle of decision. Make sure to check out all of our other trainings on our YouTube channel, My Champion Circle, as well as going to our website, mychampionscircle.com, to find more of our content on Napoleon Hill's trainings, on our individualized expertises, as well as other content that will help you accelerate your results. We'll see you on the next one, champions. Have a great rest of your day.